You mentioned the combatant commands and some overseas stuff. You and I had talked before this about some force posture issues and where troops may be located, some changes there. What are you hearing about that?
Yeah, this is why I brought notes. So there have been a couple of moves in the last few days that haven't received a lot of attention. A couple in the Baltics, another one in the Pacific. So for Lithuania, the U.S. is ramping up from what it was calling episodic deployments of an armored battalion-sized element and field artillery battery to heel-to-toe rotations. And the idea is to put combat credible forces in the region, obviously post-Ukraine invasion. And then in Estonia, there's a similar move with heel-to-toe rotations of a HIMARS platoon, which dovetails with Estonia and some other Baltic countries buying HIMARS. And then finally, Lloyd Austin announced plans to increase the presence of a rotational bomber presence in Australia. So you got stuff happening in Europe, you have stuff happening in the Pacific. All of that, all of that maybe falls under what the department said it wants to do in its defense strategy, and the Biden administration's defense strategy under campaigning, which is like freedom of navigation operations, reconnaissance flights, multinational exercises. So I definitely will keep an eye open. I'd recommend keeping an eye open to see what other kinds of force posture moves we might see this year.
So we kind of got hints of this during the Trump administration when they talked about yanking all of those troops that were stationed in Germany and putting them other places. Obviously that had some political fighting and some personal things with Trump, but it sounds like the Defense Department's sort of moving towards hey, let's take some of that idea, let's spread people out in more places, let's do more work with allies. I mean, these are not places that are completely foreign to U.S. troops, but maybe seeing more troops put in those areas and maybe having more interaction with them.
I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily draw a parallel there between what the Trump administration was doing. I think, that was maybe aimed at sending a message to allies, like they wanted to knock, pulling American troops out of Germany probably is, hey, let's send a message about making a 2% defense spending commitment, the NATO Wales pledge. But now the whole reality has shifted. This is like post Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I think these are force posture moves that are like specifically around, responding to that. Germany is, European countries have kind of come along and see now that they have to increase defense spending. So I think the world has turned, and this is a bit different.
Megan, what's that mean for just personnel stuff? We've got more rotations over there. It's more people coming in and out. I mean, the DoD has done this for a long time. I can't imagine that ramping that up has too many negative consequences other than getting troops exposed to more ideas and more allies.
I mean, certainly not right now. There's been 20,000 or so that have been mobilized within Europe or from the U.S. into Europe since early last year, even before the invasion. And so this is kind of just moving some of those around, or kind of making semi-permanent some of those moves that were already there. So that means that once those units have been there long enough, someone will come in and backfill them. The big question it raises for me, honestly, is that the Defense Department has been trying to do sort of this pivot toward INDOPACOM and looking more at force posture in Asia. And it seems like every time they get to a point where they're like, okay, maybe we'll just change things up there, something happens in Europe and they start having to send more people to Europe.
Yeah. All right, well, look, some of that's going to be dependent on the defense budget, too. And that's the final question I wanted to bring up to both of you. We was coming off of another year of CRs and chaos and some upset with some problems with the budget here. But ultimately, we saw a pretty big increase in the defense budget, about $850 billion, much more than what the president was asking for. With the Republican Congress, with what appears to be a pretty sympathetic Democratic Senate, how high do you see the defense budget potentially going here? Joe, you and I have been on the Hill. Every year we hear the chatter, this is going to be the year that it gets pulled back. This is going to be the year that defense spending gets pulled under control. Are we ever going to see that year in our lifetime?
I mean, I think if that year was going to be, it would have come already under the Biden administration. But I think, inflation, the situation with Europe right now, I think all of that is conspiring to see ever larger defense budgets. I mean, you alluded to it, $850 billion. What the NDAA contained, I think, was about $45 billion more than what the Biden administration asked for. I mean, if you really look at it, with all of these Ukraine supplementals, it's even more for defense spending than even that $850 billion. So
Well, and Megan, I know one of the issues keeps coming up on the personnel side is they're going to be looking at military pay. There's the inflation costs. There's other things. So that's just more and more. Even if we're not talking about buying more equipment, just keeping the personnel side,
Afloat.
healthy is costly.
Yeah, I think like Joe was saying, I think the worst you'd probably ever see is something that amounted to a flat budget, but there's really doesn't seem to be much of an appetite for reining in the defense budget, nor any sort of plan for like where you would even start if you were going to start cutting things. Because as you've mentioned, the biggest part of the defense budget is the personnel cost. And so that's going to be the first thing people are going to come back with if you say that you want to cut it.
Okay. Well, look, thanks to both of you. That's all the time we have for in this discussion today. But don't worry, we'll be covering all these stories throughout the coming year over at militarytimes.com and at defensenews.com. Be sure to stop by frequently to read up on all the biggest military news, and thanks for watching.